All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the limited run series, How to Market Your Cyber Self, joined with Virginia Case, the expert cybersecurity marketing expert over at Stratic. Now, this is episode 8 of 8, so if you've been with us along this ride, you know how much value and how awesome it's going to be talking to Virginia today. Today, we're going to be talking about decoding go-to-market for yourself and influencing stakeholders. Now, first of all, we're going to definitely define what go-to-market means, because I think that's a term I struggle understanding, and then understanding why you'd want to market yourself and why you'd want to help influence stakeholders. What's the value of that? What is the long-term impact and goal of that? We're going to cover all of it today, and just like every other episode of this Simply Cyber Original Run series, Virginia is going to be delivering actionable tools, tips, techniques that you can actually implement as early as today in order to increase your ability to go to market and influence stakeholders. I can't wait personally. I'm super excited. Let's go get Virginia and dig in. We only got 30 minutes, so we got a boogie. What's up, Virginia? How are you?
Hey, Jerry, so good to see you. Thanks for having me again. I can't believe we're finally at episode 8. It's gone by so fast.
It really has, and we were doing it bi-weekly too, so it's like 2 months, and it's startling how quickly time really flies. But you know what? The value has been so good. And just really quick programming note, if you missed any of the episodes, they are all available on demand on the Simply Cyber channel, and later today or early tomorrow, I'm actually going to be bundling them up and putting them all on audio podcasts. So the Simply Cyber podcast, you can catch it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, all the usual places you catch podcasts, and you can binge it like it's Amazon and Netflix before they figured out that they shouldn't do that kind of binge model. All right, Virginia, let's dig in. First item on the docket: promoting yourself towards specific objectives, awareness, sales, job, influence, whatever your objectives are. Before you answer this, define go-to-market, and then please drop some knowledge bombs on us.
Sure. So for me, go to market really is around what you're going to do to get yourself out into the world. The world is that marketplace. And so when we think about the marketplace, it could be inside of different social platforms, it could be on your own website, it could be if you're selling a product or a course, it could be all those different platforms out in the world that give you an opportunity to sell yourself or to sell a service or product. So go to market means getting your assets together, being able to produce those assets in a way that's going to be compelling and interesting for the people who are receiving them, and then making sure that everything that you've produced is going to be available for people to take an action from there. So going to market then is followed by taking an action.
Okay, that's an actionable. And I think for someone like myself who doesn't know much about marketing or sales or anything like that, I have heard this term call to action. So typically at the end of anything, even at the end of this stream where we're going to offer an opportunity for people to book 15 minutes of your time to have a further conversation, that is a call to action where you're asking the person consuming the content, whether it's a video, a post, a blog, whatever, to take some action to continue the conversation. Would that be a fair way of referring to what you're speaking about?
Yeah, definitely. I struggle with the phrase call to action because it is nebulous. I like to think of it as the now go do something. So the
Okay.
call to action is, what do you want me to do next? And a lot of times we presume that our audience knows what we want them to do. But the reality is that we need to tell them what we want. Nobody's a mind reader. So if you get, and if there are, actually, that'd be awesome. I'd like to know how to get that skill set, but I digress.
Seriously, right?
It'd be pretty good. The reality of it is that you need to tell people what you want them to do. So if it is to subscribe, if it is to get in touch with you, if it is to read or learn more, all those things are a call to do something. And so there are actual functional terms like call to action inside of HubSpot, like as an example. But really what we think about it as telling somebody to go do something.
Yeah, and I've been doing this game for a few years now, and I find it kind of awkward. I know people make fun of people who do YouTube videos, like hit the bell for notifications, like be sure to subscribe, like that video. And over time it becomes a little bit more common. I mean, I personally still find it a little cringy, but I do try to qualify it by saying, what is the impact of you liking the video? Like my daily live streams, it'll help pay it forward and other people can find it. So I don't know if it's common to qualify a go do something action, but certainly important and part of the overall ecosystem. And one thing I'd like to share with the community is when you say, for example, you might write this in your LinkedIn post. I don't do this, but you might do it, or you might want to start doing this. At the end of any LinkedIn post you make, right? Like, let's say Alicia Jerry. What's up, Alicia Jerry? Good to see you. Alicia Jerry's like, check it out. NIST CSF 2.0 just dropped. Here are my thoughts on this. Boom, item one. Boom, value prop two. At Gary Sturgiadis, what do you think? And then at the very bottom, put, if you like this type of content, follow me on LinkedIn for more of it, right? It's not cringy. You're literally saying, if you liked it and you want more of it, here you go. Now, you might think, oh, it's obvious. Like, if I liked Alicia's post, I would go follow her. But it's not obvious. It's only when you literally spoon feed someone and say, hey, if you want more of this, click here. And they're like, oh, I do, click. Like, and that's how you effectively, convert someone in order to, either follow you or whatever. But something as simple as that is just a signature block on your post to say, hey, if you like this content, follow me for more.
Encouragement is key. So, especially when we think about all the different ways in our normal daily lives that we need those reminders, like even if it's like, remember, hey, our dog needs its medicine tonight. We need to make sure that we do that. With those setting those reminders, like Alexa sends off that notification for me every single night. I know that it happens every single night, but it's helpful to have those reminders, and I appreciate it. And so, as you're thinking about helping the different people interact with you, think of it as a helping tool, not as a cringe tool.
Absolutely. So, what are some specifics here to promote like specific objectives, like promoting yourself towards them? Like, what are some
So, what's
some
this
thoughts
mean?
around this?
So, promoting yourself towards specific objectives means getting really clear about what your goal is. So, a lot of the conversations that I've been privileged to have with the Simply Cyber community are around helping people go into a new field of discipline, or being able to figure out how they're going to transition from a full time gig into a new freelance gig. All of those different things that you are doing in your go to market, in your marketing of yourself, you need to think about what you want to get out of it. Is it something where you just want to start dipping your toe into the awareness pool? Hey, people, I exist. If it's awareness, there's certain metrics that you're going to be looking at for determining whether or not you're achieving your goal, that objective. The next part of this could be around sales. And this is something where all of us start thinking about how we want to actually produce revenue. And so if you're looking at a sales objective, you're going to have different KPIs. You're going to look at different ways that you're going to look on the return on investment from getting yourself out there, spending money on advertising, potentially looking at all those different ways to sell something. If you're looking at promoting yourself for a job, you're going to be looking at some of the different ways that you can incorporate specific capabilities and skills. We've talked about the certifications that you can do to be able to show those things on different LinkedIn posts and things like that, where you can just kind of promote yourself towards that specific objective. I want to get a job. How do I continue to post messages about I want a job without repeating the same thing? I want a job, I want a job, I want a job, because it's boring. The other part of this is influence. And one of the things that we've seen is that influence doesn't necessarily convert to dollars. It can, and there needs to be a step two to that influence. But when we start thinking about like what your objective is, it can be multi-pronged. You can be thinking about, well, I'd like to create awareness, and I'd also like for people to buy things from me. And also at the same point, I really like my reputation to improve and create some influence. And if that gives me a new job, then awesome. But think about what that priority is, and think about how you're going to align specific KPIs after it. And if you're not sure about what those KPIs should be, thank you, Jesse, for putting that out there, the key performance indicators. We're really thinking about all the different ways that you can evaluate how something is doing. So if it is, I want to see my followers grow by 20%, that could be a performance indicator. It could also be something as simple as I would like to sell something this month. Starting from zero is very hard. And that's one of the reasons why, if you're having trouble figuring out what some of those different metrics are, or if you're having trouble figuring out what your objective should be, the Google is your friend. Also use Claude.ai. ChatGPT obviously can help with this as well. I'm actually finding myself more a fan of Claude.ai. So check it out. It feels more authentic. And so you can go and ask specific questions like, what are the different things I should be looking for in terms of how I can spread awareness, how can I measure that? And then so you can figure out, are those things that fit within your skill set, or are those things that you're going to have to stretch on? And we talked about that last time in terms of like what your skills are versus what you might need to hire somebody who's an expert to help you achieve.
So another thing that I would not caution, but like qualify for people who are listening right now, and I like the audience. By the way, you guys, your engagement, super awesome, and I love seeing that these. I know these. I know Alicia's doing a website. Jesse's got like a live hosted security slaying security plus course he's doing. Lots of great stuff. If you are going to take Virginia's advice, which I strongly encourage, and use metrics to help identify if you're achieving your goals or if you're moving forward, one word of caution: do not overwhelm yourself with metrics, right? Like, I would almost encourage you to maybe look at some metrics, right? Like, maybe pick 3 or 4 that are interesting, and then really pick one and make that, they call it your North Star, but like, make it the one that you care about. Because if you start caring about all these other metrics, what you're going to end up doing is spending time working on figuring out what your current metrics are and refreshing your metrics. And even if it's as simple as just logging into a website to look at the number, it's cycles that may or may not be necessary. And this is my opinion, but if you have one metric that kind of straddles multiple dimensions, I think that's a good one. And I'll just share an example. And my metrics for success or whatever have changed over time. But right now, in September 6, 2023, I am using the metric of number of live attendees on the Simply Cyber Daily Cyber Threat Briefing. Now, that isn't indicative of how successful my course is or how much subscribers I get on YouTube and stuff like that. But to me, it's the community. It's people showing up. It's helping each other. It's growing. It's amplifying. I see the value in it, and it's very important to me. And because it's a microcosm, in my opinion, of like what the greater Simply Cyber community is as a brand and as a tool for people to leverage to better themselves and develop skills and network with each other. Since it's a microcosm, to me, that number is indicative of how the greater health of that goal is of growing that community. So, it may not be right, it may not be wrong, but it's what I'm interested in, and what I think helps demonstrate the health and the growth of the Simply Cyber community.
And those metrics are super personal, and you have to be able to differentiate for yourself that your value is not necessarily going to reflect accurately against what those different value indicators are from the different ways the KPIs are going to show you. You can be creating stellar content, you can be saying brilliant things, but if you don't have the exposure, you're not going to see it in terms of likes or shares or impressions. And so I try to encourage people to not get discouraged by those different factors, but to also look at what's resonating and to measure yourself against yourself. Where are you now and where are you in the future? And Gary, you had asked which tool I had mentioned. It's Claude.ai, CLAUDE.ai. And it's
Oh,
free.
good. Excellent. Yeah, we'll pull that up before the stream ends. And one unbelievably valuable thing that Virginia just mentioned that I want to like underline is compare yourself to yourself. Like, where are you now and where do you want to be? You can look to other people as influences and best practices and stuff. But if you have, say you're growing a YouTube channel, since that's the one I'm the most familiar with, and you have like 30 subscribers, and over the course of next week you get 3 new subscribers, and you're like, oh my god, this sucks. Like, Jerry's channel gets 3,000 subs a month. Like, this sucks. And it's like, no, you just increased your sub count by 10%. That's like amazing. I would probably faint if I grew 10% in a week. So don't think of it as like, oh, like it's not me. Like, focus on yourself, focus on growing what you're growing, put your energy and effort into it, and things you can't control, don't worry about it, right? Let's keep going, Virginia, because you want to talk about bridging communication gaps. What's a communication gap? Why is it a problem? And how do we bridge them?
So, communication gaps are when you have a specific message and you're expecting somebody to receive it exactly the way that you're sending it. And if any of you are in a significant relationship, what you can guarantee is that your partner probably isn't hearing things exactly as you are intending for it to be received. So that is a great example of a communication gap. And when we start getting into business, and as we start getting into how we want to be employed in all of those different important business interactions, it gets even more complicated because we get nervous. We start thinking about different ways that we want to present our best self, which may not be the same person that we're going to say, slang words with our friends. We need to think about the different ways we can authentically show up, but still continue to have those different areas where we're understanding where there's maybe room for misinterpretation. So, one of the ways that I like to do this is asking people what they've heard. Like, specifically asking for feedback or being able to restate to somebody, like, I heard that you say that these three things are really important with this job. Am I hearing that right? And then getting somebody to reinforce those different pieces of feedback to you allows you to continue to have that conversation going forward. Communication gaps can also exist very specifically when you are creating marketing collateral. You may be going out into the world and creating stuff that you think is going to really resonate. But if you're getting crickets on the other end, one of two things could be happening. One, it could be shared on dark social, which is what we all hope for, that somebody is like loving it but not sharing out with the world that they love it. Or two, it's just there's a gap. The people who you're sending the message out to aren't receiving the message you want to have received. And unfortunately, the algorithms penalize us for this. When you start saying the stuff that nobody wants to hear, then it may be fulfilling for you personally, but it's not going to be fulfilling for you in terms of any of those initial objectives. So, bridging those communication gaps are a matter of testing and being able to see what other people are doing and being able to analyze the efficacy of those different people and channels to see whether or not that's something for you. Now, I know that we all understand that copying is the highest form of flattery, but I really encourage you not to. But go to school on what other people are sharing and figure out what the audiences are responding to. Reddit's a really great place for this to be able to see where people are going to chime in or pile on and be able to communicate on things that they actually enjoy. And there's also a really great place for you can actually see where there's miscommunications. Look and analyze those miscommunications, see where the gap was. And if you can start analyzing where those most frequent areas of confusion are, you can help to tailor your content so that you're not making those same mistakes.
100%. And just another like lesson learned worth sharing. Um, think of a Venn diagram, and a Venn diagram, for those who aren't familiar, it's two circles, and that's two things, and there's individual mutual exclusivity things, and then the intersection of those two circles is the inclusion of both of those things in some aspect. Okay, I want you to know whether you're posting a tweet, whether you're writing a blog post, whether you're doing a live stream with the lovely Virginia Case. This graphic, this circle right here is things that I want to talk about. This circle is things that you, chat, Christopher K. Hall, Gary Sturgiadis, Jesse Johnson, Kenneth, these are things that you want to hear, okay? If the circles have no overlap, guess what? You guys don't care what I have to say. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how awesome I think it is. There's nothing you want to hear. The overlap, that little intersection, that's the sweet spot. So even though you may want to be talking about all the things, if you want to resonate and hit and serve the community that you're communicating with, make sure that you're hitting that intersection. Like Virginia just outlined, there's ways to go find out what are people wanting to talk about, what are people asking about, what are people not interested in talking about. Now, I just want to preface that by saying you're not supposed to be mute on all the other things you're interested in. It's just there's a different circle of audience for that intersection, for that piece. But just depending on what you're trying to do, just know that with all due respect, not everybody wants to hear everything you have to communicate. Your best practice is to find that intersection. Believe me, I did a video on cyber insurance 2 years ago. I think it has like 30 views on YouTube at this point, and it's like my most horrible performing video, and it's because nobody wanted to talk about it 2 years ago. I was trying to get that train started in Virginia, but it wouldn't leave the station.
It's an important train to be on now, though.
Oh
And
yeah, of
and
course. Yeah, now. Yeah.
in terms of like that conversation though, think about it back to when we were talking a few episodes ago about those constellation topics. There's that key topic that you may be an expert in. And so maybe it's around GRC. And then maybe perhaps you want to go into some other things that are relevant to you, personal stories. I faced this week my mother not being able to get in with LastPass, struggling on the struggle bus of changing passwords and fighting with Google Password Manager versus LastPass. That's a personal story. It's a struggle bus thing that I'm experiencing, but not everybody in the entire world needs to know about that. Related to cyber in some ways, maybe something that can show authenticity about who I am as a person. But again, what's the lesson that somebody's going to get out of that? What's my objective? What are the different ways that I'm going to continue to engage with my audience and really have them feel value and see me as a trusted person to go to for advice, for counsel, and to really engage with in a meaningful way?
110%. Integrity is paramount in my mind. Let's talk about captivating non-technical stakeholders. Since we just talked about your mom, who sounds like she may be a little bit non-technical, let's talk about
Slightly.
some non-technical stakeholders and how do we engage with them.
So, when we're thinking about different channels, if you are in a specific feed like Discord, where you know that you're dealing with a bunch of people who are like minded and are there for a specific purpose, you can use jargon. You can use a lot of these different terms of art that we've all come to know. Now, if you're in a broader venue like YouTube, or for instance, if you're looking at TikTok, or, and again, there's, you know, different opinions on whether or not you want to use TikTok in the cyber community. But if we think about LinkedIn, when you post, you are still going to have an organic crowd of the different people that you've connected with in different places and different stages and phases of your life. Thinking about how you're going to communicate with them and what that objective may be. Maybe if you're working on awareness because you're not ready to sell anything yet, or you're not looking for a job right now, but you could use a warm introduction in the future, being able to communicate effectively with that audience that is the generic audience is going to help people to understand the importance around what you are passionate about and what you know. And so, as we've even seen here inside of our chat today, what is a KPI? So, being able to break that down for non-marketers is really important. So, thank you, team, for jumping in on that. And being able to figure out how we can continue to engage people in a way that makes them feel like they're part of the group and that they can understand the functional naming of things. Now, there's more content out there than we can possibly get our arms around that you can constantly feel like you're out of the current stuff of what is the most advanced threat vector? What is the most advanced threat actor group? Like, what are we looking at for what's happening in the news today? You can always feel like you're behind, although your briefing does help with keeping you on top of things. It's
Thank you.
really easy to feel overwhelmed by this information, and people who are not in that world have no idea. And so you want to find ways that you can continue to make it personalized and to also break down those terms. And so a really quick way is just making sure that if you are going to use acronyms, understand that that's part of it. And also one of the things that I learned the hard way, and it's kind of a silly thing, but I remember being in one of my first like business meetings as a fresh college graduate, and they're like, well, SME's going to do that and SME's going to do that. And to me, SME was a character from Captain Hook. That was it. And I sat there and I was like, what the heck is SME? And then, of course, it was the subject matter expert. I didn't even get SME, it was just me. And so, like, thinking about those different ways that you can continue to be inclusive and continue to engage the different people outside. Because remember, as you are working inside of the corporate ladder, not everybody's going to be an expert in cybersecurity. Not everybody's going to be an expert in operations or finance. You need to figure out ways to continue to make it relevant and interesting. And so storytelling is a really great way of doing that. So my hope is that if you remember SMEs, you may remember Captain Hook at this point in the future, and that's going to be like one of those little memory nuggets for you. And so that's one of those ways that you continue to engage, and that when you look later into the future and you're like, SME, SME, that's going to be a thing that you're going to remember from this episode.
I love it. So storytelling's effective. I mean, would you use that in personal branding when you're trying to level up and win over executives?
It depends. So I tell people that there is a balance between sharing TMI and also sharing authentically. And there's also a certain amount of time that you need to have built your brand, and the amount of brand credit that you have at a certain point in time where you can kind of make those debits of like, all right, I'm going to share something that is a little bit more personal about myself, or something that might make me a pinata for someone else. you got to think about how much you've put yourself out there before you decide to take the pinata stance. So, looking at the different ways that your personal brand has been out there, your credibility, your authenticity, your expertise, all of those different things that go out into the world, you need to think about how you can use those to communicate with others and being able to persuade them towards what you're doing. And persuasion isn't about doing something deceitful or bad. Persuasion is helping to bring somebody along the way that you're thinking. And if you can't, sometimes that happens. That happens more often than not. But being persuasive in your argument is about being articulate. It's about understanding what your argument really is, having clarity around that, and helping to communicate those goals to somebody else in a meaningful way so that they can understand where you're coming from and maybe that a compromise is going to be necessary. But really continuing to think about all of those things inside of your message so that you are planting a flag. It's important to have an opinion, but also give yourself room to be able to share that expertise with others. And as you're working with executives and you're working with people who are above you on the chain of command, it's important to help them understand what part of the puzzle you are doing to be able to move the business forward. So that's part of the go-to-market. Here's what I'm doing right now to help the organization grow. Here's what I'm doing as an individual to help myself grow. And as you're looking at different executives, it doesn't necessarily need to be within the organization that you're in right now. It could be a future recruiter. It could be a future boss. It could be a friend of a friend. So using those smart tactics around being able to tell your story in a complete and concise way is a challenge, but it'll help you to be able to present yourself and win over the different people that you want to engage around the different objectives that you've set.
Yeah, and final thing I want to say, because again, I usually speak from life experience, right? Like I typically don't just like pontificate on things I don't really know about. But you said being authentic, being who you are. But by writing multiple things and posting and whatever, you're going to find your voice, right? You already know what your voice is. It's in your inner monologue. It's what you're passionate about, and you're going to get comfortable and familiar and just it's old hat of sharing what you think, so that when you do engage an executive or a recruiter or somebody down the road or whatever, you're just delivering consistently how you are and who you are, which is authentically you. And whatever. Sometimes it doesn't jive, but you know what? Maybe it wasn't going to jive anyways, no matter what. And you didn't want to be fraudulent in who you are, just to like make that relationship happen, because long term it may not have been a good relationship in the first place. So I would just say, not practice makes perfect, but don't wait for the perfect blog post or the perfect anything. Like, you just got to hit record and go for it. Start sharing your message, who you are, and tweak and refine along the way. And I think you're going to find personal, and this is more of a macro statement for this overall 8-part series that we've been doing as we wrap up, is as you begin to move forward and you're going to start, you're going to be moving in a direction and you're going to start dialing it in, and then you're really going to be able to start picking up speed and you're going to be loving it, and it's going to be beneficial to you, your personal brand, and how you market yourself and your business and your services, and all of the aspects of what you are and how you're bringing it to market. And don't think of a market as like, a meat market or something down in the town center or something like that. Like, it could be the market of professionals that you want to engage with, the market of commerce that people want to buy stuff in. It could be the market of, at a conference, right? So don't get your mindset on what the definition of market is in the term go to market. It's just bringing yourself, your services, and your authentic, value to a entity, a group, a community, and that's it. That's all I'll say about that.
Well, I think one of the things that's great about today's day and age is that there are a lot of content creators out there. And if you're struggling to find your voice and you're struggling to figure out what you want to say out in the world, there are a lot of tools to help you get past that blank page. Just start Googling a bunch of different AI tools and they'll help you get past that blank page. And as you're doing that editing, or as you potentially record yourself just talking to yourself and listening to yourself back and going, oh, that sounded smart. Oh, I don't know that I want to say that. We can always be incredibly critical of ourselves, But at least start looking at some of the framework about what you like about what you're saying and think about the things that you want to put there out in the front so that you can create your voice around those things. And then as you continue to go, you'll be able to refine it around specific subject areas, and then you'll continue to be able to grow your audience on that. But again, comparison is a thief of joy. Do not go out there and look at how you're performing against some other major rock star, because it's going to just really defeat you. And you got to remember, it's that 90% rule. Like, it takes 90% of that energy to go, up, or how does that work? It's it takes 10% of the time to do 90% of the work, and then
Oh, the
90% to do the
Pareto
last
principle,
10.
80-20 rule.
It's like all of those different things. It kills you of like how much it takes to get that to that perfect area, like I want it to be perfect and pristine. And I'm a perfectionist, so I struggle with this myself personally. Like, getting out there and doing it, it'll get easier. And Jerry, even before we started today, you were like, "See, you're fine with this." I'm like, "I am still shaking like a leaf on the inside." But like, the reality is that the more you do it, the less freaked out you're going to be, and you're not going to be sitting there waiting to see your first like or your first subscription or your first follower. All of those different things. You'll get used to it, and it'll be more enjoyable the longer you do it. And don't give up.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it.
And if you've seen a single episode of Simply Cyber's Daily Cyber Threat Brief, you know bad, weird stuff can happen, and you just kind of roll with it. So, Virginia, there's a lot of questions in chat. Gary had a bunch. Gary, thanks for the questions. We're not going to be able to get to the questions because of the format, but you can connect with Virginia to have conversation and get these questions answered. Virginia, why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
Sure. So I have started creating these coffee breaks, and though I've recently switched to decaf, I still drink quite a fair amount of coffee. So you can get 15 minutes with me. This is not a sales initiative. This is really about my ability to hear what's going on in the industry, hear what's happening for you, and also be able to give back. So if you're interested in having a one-to-one conversation with me about what you're trying to do for your own like initiative for yourself, or for finding a job, or for looking at joining a new company, any of those different things that a marketer could help, sign up for some time on my calendar. In these 15 minutes, I ask that you come with a specific thing you want to talk about so that I can help be tactical in that time. But it's really for you, for us to be specific. And if you're enjoying the series and you want to tune in for more content, I'm starting to create more videos myself. So make sure to follow me on LinkedIn, and you'll start seeing some additional content to help you on your journey of doing some DIY content and being able to work on that front.
That's awesome. So yeah, definitely connect with Virginia for essentially a 15-minute meet and greet, but that has a targeted focus of answering some problem you're having. Genuinely appreciate you, Virginia, offering that up to the Simply Cyber community. I know your time is quite valuable. So also, I just want to say, like, shout out to the Simply Cyber community for giving Virginia the bug to start producing her own YouTube content. She came on as a guest. She's leaving as a host. I do love it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for our show today. I hope you enjoyed episode 8, Decoding Go-to-Market for Yourself and Influencing Stakeholders. It is episode 8 of 8, so this will conclude the first season, maybe the only season, we'll yet to find out, of Market Your Cyber Self, a Simply Cyber original series with Virginia Case, marketing executive over at Stratic. Virginia, thank you so much for all your time. Chat, thank you all so much for your continued support and showing up over the last 2 months for all these episodes. It's been wonderful. If you're listening to this on the audio, let us know by joining the Discord and giving us a high five. But that's going to do it. Until next time, stay secure. I hope you enjoyed that content. Keep the cybersecurity train going by connecting with the other Simply Cyber community resources. We have the Discord server that's lively and always keeps the conversation going. You can connect with me directly on LinkedIn. And also every single weekday morning on the Simply Cyber channel, we're doing live daily cyber threat briefings, 8 a.m. Eastern time, as well as Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We're doing live stream interviews with industry experts, and we produce videos that we push out every Wednesday morning. I'm Jerry from Simply Cyber. I hope you enjoyed the content, and we'll see you in the next one.